Welcome Strategy Battle Gamers to another GBHL YouTube channel video. You are here with your GBHL channel host, GBHL James, for another episode of Speak, Friend and Question, your favourite Hobbit strategy battle gaming question and answer show. As you can see, I'm on my own today. Well, I'm not on my own, I've got all my mates behind me here on my cabinet. A little bit of a different angle for doing the shooting. Actually, I am actually filming this on Sunday, and I'm sure you can tell that me and Mr. Giblin have unfortunately not been able to get together this week after a good run of a couple of weeks. A few reasons for that. I wasn't feeling too great on Friday, and Jamie was at an X-Wing tournament on Saturday. We were going to do it via Skype, but we didn't manage to get round to doing that. I've also been filming a ton of content, a lot of Guild Ball content this weekend actually for Hotcakes Gaming, and James was supposed to be running a baby shower in the house. I was effectively kicked out of home. I went to go and stay with my friend from Guild Ball Informer, Chris Hay, where we filmed some stuff. So actually this week for Hobbit Speak, Friend and Question, we have 65 questions. Now, that can't at all be to do with the fact that there was a competition to win some prizes. Now, I'm not with Mr. Giblin, so we're not going to announce any winners here, but we will be doing a draw for that very, very soon. But with there being so many questions, and with this being Sunday, and with there being such a massive editing queue to get on with, I better crack on. So first up, we've got our friend the Norwegian Viking, who we're going to see at the Desolation of Stockport and at Ardagon as well. It's Andreas. How you doing, buddy? He's put, using the gym. That's cheating. It's not cheating, that's what it's all about the gym. Feeling pretty good at the moment because I'm back into a bit of a different routine, which is stopping me from being able to walk or move properly, which is of course always good fun. Next up we've got Nomajestus. He's put, hello guys, after months of absence, I can finally get back in the loop. Well, welcome back. He's put, my first question, when will you play through the scenarios of the Two Towers journey book? I've been waiting ages to finally see that. Well, in terms of the channel plans to do that, I've got absolutely no idea. I was kind of cut out of the whole filming journey book, the scenario stuff. I know that Jamie took that kind of initiative and did that with the guys down south. So as to when they decide to do the Two Tower scenarios, I have no idea. Something that I wouldn't mind being involved in. I've got a lot of the Rohan terrain for it, but unfortunately I can't claim any credit for that being one of my channel babies. So that's got to be one for Mr. Giblin, but I'm pretty sure it will be in the works to do at some point later this year. So you've got a bonus question here. You put, do you think that the Goblin King is one of the most overpowered profiles in the entire game? His special rules just seem too strong in relation to his points cost. Keep up the nice content. Cheers. So the Goblin King, well, he is quite high on that power curve. He's very, very good for his points cost. I think, as with all these things, you've got to take him into account with accordance of the list that he's part of. So he's supposed to be part of course, a kind of pure Goblin Town army where it's a lot of chaff, really, and therefore, really, as an opponent, you're going to be trying to sort of chop through, and you're going to try and break. Now, the big thing with the Goblin Town armies and with the Goblin King is it's a low courage. So usually that's quite a good way of getting rid of the Goblin King, is to break that army and let him run away. Because I believe he's only courage 3. I think he's courage 3, I think, off the top of my head. So not fantastic. But in terms of him being overpowered, I don't think so. Blubbery Mass is phenomenal. It is really, really, really good. And I think what we're also seeing a lot more of people allying in Moria Goblin Shamans with Goblin Town armies, which of course makes him that bit better, because he's effectively getting a Fury save, and then he's getting his Blubbery Mass save, and then he's still got Fate and the like. But he is relatively low defense. So just like anything, if you can just get him rolling lots and lots and lots of dice, so if you can get him surrounded, trapped, do all those usual things, get him having to roll a lot of his effectively saving throw dice, then some of the things are gonna get through. And just like any of those big things, one of the best ways of getting rid of him is with magic, so shutting him down like that. So although he's quite high in the power curve for his cost, I don't think he is overpowered. But thank you very much for that, Nomajestus. Very good question. So next up, once again, we've got the Norwegian Viking. He's put hashtag Bosch dice look amazing. Yeah, they did. And I'm looking forward to using them for the first time too. Actually, I'm a little bit nervous about using them. I'm not sure about rolling dice and the and the negative thing being on the, well, the face being on the negative thing that you don't really want to see the ones. Maybe I'll roll them when I'm rolling 1s to 2s for good and evil. But you will be pleased to know that the expression has been adopted here in Norway. Well, I think #Bosh is going to be Jamie Giblin's lasting legacy to the Hobbit strategy battle gaming community. So mine might be support your Hobbit hobby and happy strategy battle gaming, or all my eyes, or any of these kind of things. But I think Jamie Giblin can take full credit for the Bosh. And maybe the hashtag part can go to Damien, who I believe, did he edit that, or maybe it was all Jamie, I'm not too sure, I can't remember. But yeah, I think that's a worldwide phenomenon now. Thanks for the great answers. That strengthened the way I was leaving ever so slightly to do, and we have to have something to do after we're done with the grand campaign in 4.5 years, so we can play the proper campaigns then, with wounding rules and all. So Andreas is referring to his campaign. Removed Skaven, Empire and Imperial Fists along with some other non-Hobbit Lord of the Rings models from display cabinets and into storage today to make room for an ever-increasing painted models that I do for SBG. It seems my life's been completely taken over by the wonders that is Middle-earth these last 2 years. Well, that's interesting, Andreas, because about 2 years ago, me and Jamie met and we got this GBHL podcasting going. Whenever I think about painting or gaming or another gaming system, I just think to myself that I could do SBG instead and do just that. What difference 2 years and a failed game makes Age of Sigmar? Well, it's interesting you said that about Age of Sigmar. I think Age of Sigmar, it clearly wasn't designed to retain people who played Warhammer Fantasy Battle, because Warhammer Fantasy Battle, although all the people who've been playing it for years and years might not like the sound of it or to hear it, but wasn't making Games Workshop any money, so they had to do something. And it appears to be on the rise, and it appears to be on the rise with young people, so it might not be a game that's necessarily for sort of advanced war gamers, but the model's nice, and it seems to be a fun way of getting kids involved, doing whatever they want to do, and I'm pretty sure they're using that as a form of lead generator to get people into what they would consider a slightly more serious game, but not necessarily a serious game, which is Warhammer 40k. So yeah, you've put no real question this week, but crack on with the great work, and please post a video of Bilbo doing tricks. Well, I'll get on that for you. What did I say? Did I say if we got over 50 comments? I think something like that, so I think maybe I'll have to do that. Next up we've got Tanya T. Boone. She is one of my patrons on HGG, so thank you very much, Tanya. Look forward to catching up with you at a tournament soon. Now, hi guys, rules question. If I have Barlins with Durin's Axe, I can re-roll one of my attack dice, but if I'm already in range of a banner, can I re-roll the other attack dice? Okay. Now I know that you can't re-roll a re-roll, but I think, does Barlin's Axe allow you to re-roll all, or is it one? I'm not too sure, to be perfectly honest. I would have to have the rule book in front of me and have a real good look through, but I think with 65 questions I might actually struggle doing that. So what I suggest you do, Tanya, is get yourself onto the Great British Hobby League Facebook page, which I know that you are part of, and if you post the rules question on there, I'm pretty sure that some more rules conscious strategy battle gamers than myself will be able to answer that question a lot better than I would be able to on the video. I know that you can't, I'm pretty sure you can't re-roll a re-roll. That's something that is in my mind for some reason, but I guess if you're not re-rolling on the dice, then hey, maybe you can do it. I don't see why not. So next up we've got James Keelty. He's put, hi guys, I've been painting Aragorn King and I'm not sure how to do the white tree. Any tips? You've also got one here for Jamie about the Arrow series, so unfortunately can't answer that. So in terms of painting the white tree, I struggled with this with one of the first miniatures that I painted, which was Halbrand. I think it was the first painted miniature that I ever did. And I struggled with that, but I wasn't a particularly good painter at the time. What I would probably suggest for you to do is to go along the lines that I've done when I painted the Rivendell Knight banner, and when you want to get the white on the embossing area or on an embossing area, what's a good idea to do is to just do it like you normally paint white. So start off with a grey and highlight up, and then make sure that your very edge highlight is white. but I've not tried that on a banner itself. But that's not a bad way to go. Edge, when it's a raised area like that, some people might say things like dry brushing, but really that needs an edge highlight. So you almost want to get the side of your brush and just sort of turn the miniature on its side and just sort of go over the white tree. Or if you've got a very fine point and you've got a skilled hand, you could just go right over the edges. But good to build it up, start from a darker grey and build up to the white. So I hope that helps James Kilty. Next up we've got Wasadi 1969. He's put, well, we have a Warhammer Fest in May. Do you think Hobbit Strategy Battle Gaming will be represented, and will you guys be attending? Warhammer Fest. What is Warhammer Fest? I'm relatively new to wargaming, so I'm not too sure what all of these different things are. I know that there is Throne of Skulls, which is the Hobbit Strategy Battle Gaming thing, but Warhammer Fest suggests to me that it was going to be to do with Warhammers. So I doubt that Hobbit SBG is there, unless it's a Games Workshop thing and they're trying to showcase the different games. But even then, we're not too sure what's going to be going on with Hobbit Strategy Battle Game, whether it is going to continue to be a supported game in that sense, or whether they are going to create new things from it, sort of individual box sets and the like. So I'm not too sure, Wasadi. But let me know, maybe in the next Speak Friend question, tell me what Warhammer Fest is. Okay, so next up we've got Duncan MC. Oh, and Duncan MC has put, cheers for the advice last week, guys. Can't wait for Stockport, as it's my first tournament, and taking a nice fluffy barrels out of Bond Army that might also do alright. Seems like a good way to start. Well, going for fluff is always a great way to go, because it means you're going to have a fantastic time, your opponents are going to have a good time, and really, really, ultimately, that's what these... what the hell was that? Ultimately, that's what these... when we're filming in your cellar as your studio. That's what you want to be getting when you go to a tournament, particularly if it's your first tournament. You want to be having a lot of fun and meeting people. So I look forward to meeting you, buddy, at the Desolation of Stockport on the 23rd, 24th of April. If you haven't already got your tickets for that, guys, make sure you contact us, and we will tell you how to do that. So another list building question this week. When calculating bow limits and breakpoints, are heroes ever counted, or is it just warriors? Well, heroes are counted for breakpoints, so you work out the total number of models, but for bow limits, heroes don't count towards your bow limit. But they do for your breakpoint, so you would calculate your overall number. So I hope that helps. And secondly, when determining if my army is broken, is it when the number of models slain in my army equals or exceeds the breakpoints, or the number of models left on the table is equal to or less than the breakpoint? Thanks again. It's when you, so if you have 40 models in your army, okay, then 50% is 20, and you have to exceed that breakpoint, so your opponent has to kill 21 models. That's my clearest way of explaining it in my mind, so I hope that helps. And then, yeah, that's the end of your question. So thank you very much for that, Duncan. I hope that makes sense. That's the way to do it. You have to exceed the break point. And with breakpoint you always round up as well, I believe. So next up we've got King Bonsai. He's put, I think Thrain is one of the best casts. It really captures the moment when he rushes out to fight Smaug. Yeah, Thrain is a lovely model. Although I'm much more of a fan. I love the Thrall model. If anybody wants to send me a Thrall, I would happily accept one. But yeah, Thrain is pretty cool where he's there with his hammer going for it. So next up we've got Stephen Gill. Not heard from you for a while, buddy. Hope you're okay. You've just had a bit of info based on the old debate you have touched on in the past. Pizza or burger? Well, why not both? Disney in Paris, in the harbour nation known for its cuisine, offered a pizza burger. Imagine two halves of a burger bun cooked as a margherita pizza with a slab of meat in the middle. It was not as bad as it sounds, and from what I remember it went down with everyone. I do remember the oil and fat dripping off as you try to eat one though. Well, it definitely sounds like something I would do when I'm not all over it. You know, I think a pizza burger sounds quite good right now while I've been eating cottage cheese and almonds and you know, eggs and chicken and broccoli pretty much every meal of every day, and protein shakes and the like. So yeah, sounds pretty good. Next up we've got Daniel Theories, but hi guys, thank you for the story lesson of the GBHL. I jumped into your content just before the summer after a year or so of watching mini wargaming and not seeing Lord of the Rings content. Yeah, well, I know that they don't do Lord of the Rings content. I know one of their ex-employees has a little bit of a foray into doing Lord of the Rings. I think he likes to do lots of different little systems, and that is Ash Barker of Gorilla Miniature Games, so definitely worth going and checking him out. He gets really good views for his Hobbit videos, but he got quite a lot of people coming over who knew him from Mini Wargaming, which is of course an advantage in terms of subscribers, and has been sent some very lovely boards and terrain. They've got a really nice setup there, so I do recommend going and checking him out. And make sure, if you do, comment on the video and say that you came from the GBHL podcast. So you guys should get Damien drunk and record him talking about wargaming as an after hours show. Well, it would have to be an after hours show because there'd be a lot of swearing. And I don't think we'd have to get him drunk, to be honest. I think that could just happen regardless. By the way, Damien, that's not having a go at you at all. Alright? Question this week is there anything in the game that you feel has been misrepresented, i.e. lack of cavalry options for Rohan or archers for elves, and as such, do you feel that all our armies are balanced? Thank you kindly. Well, that's a really good, well-rounded question. I think on the whole, a lot of armies are reasonably balanced. I think high elves could have done with more fleshing out. You know, just having one troop that you could give options to isn't necessarily ideal. I know that they can effectively take wood elves if they take Gildor, but that's not the same. And the fact that you can't merge the House of Elrond, if you could merge some of the Hobbit stuff with some of the old Lord of the Rings stuff, that might work quite well. Other lists that aren't fleshed out, I think with Rohan, I think everybody sort of laments on less so the troops, but more so a couple of the heroes. Rohan does have access to a lot of pretty cheap might heroes, but Fight 5 isn't always fantastic. And really, you know, if you could get Theoden to have some kind of buff for troops, or be some kind of special rule, I think that would be pretty good. You know, whether it was a banner, a 12-inch banner or something like that, that would be a 6-inch banner. That could be pretty good, and it would help normal riders of Rohan just that little bit more where they struggle. But apart from that, I think Gondor's pretty well fleshed out, Mordor's really fleshed out, Moria and Angmar are really fleshed out. Arnor have choices. Fiefdoms, I think there should be a captain of the undead. I think that would be quite a good inclusion. Numenor, obviously, if they wanted to flesh that out, although I think that's meant to be more of a kind of a historical thing. So yeah, just a few little ideas there about things that they could maybe flesh out as I frantically look around my cellar to see for inspiration to the answer to that question. I think they've done a reasonable job across the board. So thank you very much for that, Daniel Theory. Next up, we've got Jeremy Smith. He's put Happy Valentine's Day to you and your sweethearts. Well, I shall pass that on to Jane, Jeremy Smith. But I like the Bosch dice as they are easy to read. Nice mugs, Jamie. Yeah, the mugs are good. The mugs are good. I do like a good mug. I would love to be entered into the book drawing, especially if you two would sign it as well. Well, I'm sure if you won, Jeremy, that we'd be happy to do that. I believe, did we already sign you a t-shirt? Would you be able to send us a picture of that on your wall? Because you said that you were getting it mounted on the wall, which is quite cool. You've got, here is the 1,000-point all-hero list. Tell me your thoughts. So it's Witch King on Felbeast with 323, with 8 generic ring wraiths, 2, 10, 2, each with a horse. I would use the 8 name rays as proxies and to help tell them apart. I think that it's that 1,000 points. I think it would do terrible. I think it would do pretty terrible. But while I say that, it's a bit of a venture into the unknown. There are certain things it would be able to do pretty good. I mean, it should be able to take out an enemy leader, really. That should be doable. It should be able to shut down heroes and the like. But yeah, I don't see that list doing particularly well, but great fluff. Could be cool. Would love to see it on the table. The next part of your question, you put 29 seconds, Lizard Boy, shows how much core training helps. It's pretty good. I think I could go longer as well. I'm doing a bit more cardio at the moment, you know, while I strip down. So I'm gonna go for a 40-second Lizard Boy this time in 8 weeks. Remind me. You put corn on pizza, fail. Yeah, I completely agree. I mean, I like sweet corn, particularly if it's on the cob. I like corn on the cob. I don't know what it is, like when it's separated, I don't mind it. Like if it's in there with like a tuna pasta maybe, like a bit of sweet corn, but on a pizza, does not do it for me. Does not do it for me. 40 questions for a Bilbo video. What is, and then there's a mathematical thing here. Oh wow, there's loads here. So, what is 1 plus 1? That's 2. 2 plus 2 is 4. 3 plus 3 is 6. 4 plus... Am I actually really doing this? I don't think I'm going to do this. If a woodchuck could chuck wood, how much wood would a woodchuck chuck? What time is it? It's 5 o'clock. What time is it? How many subscribers now? 4,800 or something? What's for dinner? I had a roast dinner with Chris Hay earlier. Had some beef and veg. Does this count as 10 questions? That's all I will put forward for my share. Keep up the good work. See you next week. First Agent Smith signing off. Well, thanks as always, Jeremy, for your support. Next up, we've got King Bones Eye. He's apologising for taking Saruman's lizard boy thing. He was just trying to make people laugh. It worked. Yes, it certainly did. I hope you enjoyed that, seeing how long your channel host could say lizard boy for. So next up we got Wah, and Wah has put, great episode. All my custom dice have symbols on the 6s. Having them on 1s is torture, as you won't see the pictures. Absolutely. Yes, definitely a psychological thing about seeing the number side. I definitely have it on GBHL dice, on Element Games dice. Used to have it on those quite a lot. So even my purple 1 ring dice, it's that feeling that you think that you see them a little bit more. So you put, now to keep my head swimming with dizziness as it twirls around and around in the loop. Question. We've all played those games where either the dice have failed us at an incredible level, or the opponent's brought an untouchable list, or indeed the opponent is about as fun as a day at Skegness on a beautiful frigid November morning. Skegness is beautiful in November. But what point have you thrown your dice in the air and quit a game? Indeed, what would make you stop a game mid-turn and walk away? If you haven't quit a game, what's the closest you came to it and why? Cheers, fellows. Ooh, that's tough, because people that you might have thought about things like that might be watching. Although I have to admit, I have very, very, very rarely been in those situations. On the whole, I think 99.999% of the time, you know, especially in the Hobbit community, people are great. I don't think I've ever been close to quitting a game. I've had a couple of frustrating times, mainly if I felt that my opponent is playing for time. I think that's always the most frustrating one. Now, people might have called me in my early days in particular, but you know, I think people forgot that I was learning the game. Now, I'm not the quickest player in the world, but I'm not. There's not ever any kind of deliberate stalling. But sometimes, you know, when you're getting towards the end of the game and your opponent kind of knows that if they just take a bit longer, or if they move back and forwards and stuff, that could be infuriating. But I've never ever felt like quitting a game. Something that would, I mean, if I was playing against someone who I mean, they don't. There's not many. But if I was playing against someone that I knew was deliberately cheating, I might just refuse and just go, look, pal, this clearly means more to you than me. I'm going to forfeit. You know, you go and do whatever you want to do. But at the same time, sometimes there's that little bit of you that wants that challenge and wants to actually beat him in spite of the cheating. So, but that's we're talking very hypothetically here, because it doesn't really happen. But very interesting question, Wah. I wonder if Jamie's ever rage quit. I'm not too sure he has, but it'd be interesting to find out. So King Boneseye, I've got another one from him. He's put, what do you guys think would fix Grimhammers? I think they should be 13 points and a defense 7, and either strength 4 or burly. Thanks for the great content. Yeah, I think burly is probably their fix, to be honest. Burly's their fix, because their strength, I mean, the reason why they're strength 6 is because the advantage that dwarves have are their shields, but very rarely, sorry, not their shields, their defense, their high defense. That's their advantage, that most things are going to need 6s to wound them, even heroes. But as such, that does mean being armed with axes, that you're very rarely going to piercing strike unless you're really in that sort of fortuitous position where you are ganging up on something and you want to get the kill and you think you're going to win the fight. So as such, then being defense 6 means that it makes sense to maybe you might give it a go. And it's the same with having the strength 3. If it was strength 4, you might not do it all the time, but with strength 3 you might want to try and do it to get a defense 6 troop. But I think if you made them burly for the two-handed, I think that could work quite well. And would then kind of fit the points and everything else. So yeah, I think that's a pretty good fix for them, I have to say. But then again, I think it's just because people have that tendency to compare them to how good Khazad guards are, and I think for 11 points you probably wouldn't value the throwing weapons as much as some of the things that the Khazad guards bring. So and you've got lots of questions here, matey. You put, I should probably consolidate more. Anyway, I don't think dwarves need them, but what wizard would complement them the most? Well, I think an offensive wizard would complement the dwarves, because again, their advantage is that they're not going to die particularly easy, but they're not very mobile either, so you need someone who can get out there and create a bit of a threat range. You don't really need a defensive wizard even for the shooting. You need someone who can actually go out there and actually kill bow armed things or things that are going to threaten. So I would actually say Saruman mounted, Saruman the Might would be a really good one, or even the new one on foot wouldn't be terrible. But yeah, I'm probably going to go for Saruman, that kind of offensive wizard. Your next question is, here's a question for my regular opponents to help them out. They don't have YouTube accounts. One is playing Mirkwood and I always wreck him. The other is playing Rohan. They need some advice. Okay, well, Mirkwood, do you mean new Mirkwood, old Mirkwood? That would help. I mean, with old Mirkwood, it's very much, max out your bows, try and avoid combat as long as you possibly can, get as many wood elf spears in there as you can, and shield where necessary, and try and get your heroes to do the stuff. And having your guarded Gladrim Court can be really handy, because that's going to help you against some of those heroes. But yeah, you with all the monsters and things out there, that is tough. And as for Rohan, Rohan's slightly different. Rohan, when I think Rohan, I think all-mounted Rohan, for obvious reasons. That's my faction. But the key thing with them is just knowing when to charge. Your shooting isn't good enough to skirmish the whole game, and anybody's got a wizard or anybody who can outshoot you will outshoot you. So it's more about picking off parts of the line, trying to pull your opponent apart, charging when your opponent had priority, making sure that you've got heroes in the right place, maybe even heroic combat in with some of the heroes with additional horses after that first charge. So try and maximise the impact of your charge, and then making sure those heroes are in key places for the inevitable roll off the following turn after you've done hopefully a serious amount of damage. And then if you win the roll off, obviously get round and charging. But the key thing is, because you are then going to be counter charged, whether you win or lose the roll off, you need to then have cavalry back as a reserve, ready to then counter-charge any counter-chargers, no matter what happens in that inevitable roll-off. So that's the advice I'd give for Rohan. Hopefully that helps him. What I would advise that you do is, if you email sbgmagazine@gmail.com and you haven't got it already, there's a fabulous cavalry article in there written by myself and Mr. Giblin for the SBG Magazine guys, which of course are channel host partners down south. So if you email them, if you haven't got a copy of that, get on it, it's well worth it. And again, you got another one here. You put, also, your vids would be half as long if I forgot to comment. That's true. What is the best way to drain Azog's and Bolg's might? How to drain elves' mites. Also, how to beat Azog's hunters with Army of Thror. In particular, Azog and very much Bolg. Okay, so best way to drain Azog's might. Well, you know, things that drain might, things like when people heroic strike up against them, that's always going to be helpful. Or if you're willing to risk it, getting a lot of troops in, so that they're not, you know, if they're not getting the 6 as well, then that's a good way to drain the might. Because if they don't get the 6, they might have to might up to get to that. It's not a bad way of doing it. Force them to use might on fate, so doing ranged attacks can be pretty good, or shutting them down. I mean, the best way of shutting down big things like that is with magic all day long. So if you can do that, great. And that in turn can also drain their might, because they might do a will roll and you've done a 6 and they roll a 4, and it's quite important, so that can translate over. In terms of beating Azog's hunters with Army of Thror, well, you've got lots of defense 7, so you're going to negate a lot of the kind of strength 4. Azog is fantastic at killing heroes, so if you're doing pure Azog's hunters, really you're going to have to try and it's tough. You almost want to, in some ways, ignore him or go for it with all of them. But I would focus mainly on trying to chop through the troops. The troops are quite squishy, so if anything, try and hold up Azog, particularly trying to stop him from heroic combating. So getting in, stopping him from charging on the White Warg, maybe getting 4 or 5 in on him at a time. You might be killing quite a lot, but trying to use your heroes to really get through Hunter Orcs, because they're a lot squishier. So that's probably not a bad way to go. And as ever, always think about what scenario you're playing. So I hope that helps, King Bonsai. Which brings us on to David Whitaker. He's put, those mugs are insanely awesome. I'd love one for work. Well, you've got to speak to Mr. Giblin or come to the Desolation of Stockport. An obvious one for capturing a moment from the movies would be Frodo and Sam and Gollum on Mount Doom. Frodo holding the ring is awesome. Yeah, that's a cool one. I also love the original Fell Beast, which came with Frodo putting the ring on. The 2 models plus some ruins create an instant diorama. Certainly do. Lastly, Barrels Out of Bond. If you don't own it, go get it. It's gorgeous. Yeah, those are some really cinematic models right there. So thanks very much for the contribution, David Whitaker. Next up, we've got War again. So actually, last week's episode was perhaps one of the best. Really enjoyed the expanded answers on some of the questions. Great work, fellas. Well, thank you very much. Not as many expanded ones today. We're already on half an hour. So yeah, I mean, how long have we got? No, we're not doing too bad. So yeah, next up we've got Jericho Jackson, another one of my patrons from HCG. He's put, hey guys, are you planning to go to Nova this year? I might be going to the US around the right time before I go to the UK for Ardacon. Great news. And could be able to go to the tournament. One question I have is it generally cheaper to fly from Washington to London or to Manchester? Thanks, Jericho. I'm not too sure, to be honest. I mean, we flew from London. Maybe that's because it was cheaper, or maybe it was because we didn't need connecting flights. I can't remember, but we did. We flew from London. But we can do a little bit of research for you for that. In terms of whether we're going for Nova, I think we are. You know, life aside, things coming up that don't necessarily expect right this second, it does look like it might be on the cards. And I hope so as well, because we had a great time over at Nova. The guys from the DCHL and all of the guys in Washington that we met really looked after us. I had a blast. I mean, it's a proper holiday for me. I really let my hair down. You know, it wasn't even about all the gaming in the end. For me personally, it was just great to meet so many other people who've got passion for it. The hotel was lovely. Just had a really good time. Spent fantastic time with the channel host as well. So yeah, hopefully we are all going to be going to that. And I have been speaking to DCHL Devin quite a lot about that. So thank you very much, Jericho. Hopefully I'll see you at both. So next up we've got Callum D's. But thanks guys, definitely agree with the Free People's Book problem. Since then I've strayed away from that and towards Mordor. As a diorama piece, I'm painting all 9 of the GW created ring raves. Nice, I think that's a good way to go. Definitely a good way to go. My question for you is, of all of the 9, which do you think is the best looking or most interesting model? Oh gosh, that's pretty hard. From the 9, the standard rays, SBG, ring, wraith, GW. Let's try that. Just quickly go on here. Nazgul. Oh, hang on. I can just go on the Games Workshop web store. Brilliant. Which one do I like the most? I like the one that reminds me of that point in the movie where it turns around. So the Witch King one's quite good. You know, where he's got his sword in it. It's that bit in the movie, isn't it, where he goes toward Frodo sees him and he goes towards him like that. But I also like the one where he's got his arm out, his sword's in, and he's kind of looking back behind him like that. And again, it's because there's a bit in that scene in that movie where you see one, and it's when the hood turns round and looks, and it might be when Aragorn runs up and starts throwing flames all over him. So I think that's probably the best looking one for me from those ring raves. I'm guessing you don't mean the named ring raves. If you mean the named ring raves, I really like the Knight of Umbar aesthetic. Okay, so next up we've got Tom Turtle, another patron. Hello. You've got Jamie. I tried to get into The Flash, but I didn't like it, I'm afraid. However, Daredevil and Jessica Jones are outstanding. Hands down some of my favourite TV shows. Have you seen any of them? Can't speak for Jamie. I personally haven't, but thanks as ever, Tom Turtle, for getting involved with the discussion. Next up, we've got Star Fox. Hello, pal. You put, which would you guys rather be? Aemma, King of Rohan, but you have to marry the daughter of Imrahil, or would you rather be Faramir and marry Eowyn? Also, how big is Bilbo in dog clothing size? I've got no idea. In dog clothing size? He's only a little doggy, isn't he? He's a little Yorkshire Terrier mixed with Poodle. He's about this big. I've got no idea. You'd have to ask Jane. Jane does that. Jane buys little coats for him and stuff, and it's just, you know, one is enough. But it's like, I'm like that for myself, you know. I need one coat really, maybe 2. You know, if that, one warm weather, one cooler weather. That's about as far as I go. In terms of the first question, that's an easy one for me. You know, Aemma, King of Rohan all day long. You know, Faramir, well, he's not king of Gondor. He doesn't become king of Gondor, does he? You know, it's Aragorn, isn't it? And while Eowyn is pretty nice, I think we all know that Aemma is my dude. So I think I'd rather be a king and marry Imrahil's daughter, because they've got a nice lineage, I'm pretty sure. Should we have a little, Imrahil's daughter, should we type that into Google? What comes up when we type that in? Imrahil's daughter. Let's see if she's fit. What we got? Images. No, just loads of pictures of Sean Bean seems to come up. Oh, hang on a minute. Who's that? I don't know who that is, but I guess it's not Imrahil's daughter. But anyway. So yeah, that's probably where I'd go with that. So thank you very much for that, Star Fox. Next up we've got Wobbachigo. You put, hey guys, sorry if this has been asked already, but I've been out of the loop for a while. I know. It's good to have you back. Are you guys planning on doing the other 2 to 3 of the Lord of the Rings campaign scenarios from the Journey books? Cheers. Well, we've already had that question, so I've already given the answer for that, and the answer is yes, it is planned when, as ever, these things come down to time. After that we've got Luke Cocchiardi. He's put, hi guys, just started painting again after a 6-month dry spell and it's not going so well. Can you give me any tips on highlights, because mine's don't look too flash hot. Thanks, Luke C. Yeah, so with highlights, the key thing with highlights is that you don't just think of highlights as being, you know, the thing that you do. The final highlight, there are stages of highlights, aren't there? You can't just think of it as base, wash, highlight. You have to think that your highlight starts from the moment that you reapply your base colour on top of your washed base colour. And that's what I start thinking. And it depends for different colours. Different colours will look the colour you want them to be, depending on what point in that sort of shade to highlight point that you put them. So white very much will look like white if it's the final edge highlight, whereas some other colours work better when they're in that kind of darker part. But in terms of highlighting, I would just say that have a bit of patience. You know, make sure that you've got a good light to paint with. When you wash a model, so what you put your base colours on and you wash the model, that will give you a good idea where all of your raised areas should be. And you know, your final highlights tend to be things like, you know, the edges of cloth that are catching in the sunlight, or tips of noses and fingers, or the edges of swords and the edges of armour. Think about where the sun would be catching. But you don't want that edge highlight to be too stark in contrast to your base colour, so you do need to work up. So it's always a good idea to then have a 50-50 of your base colour and one of your highlight colours before going to the highlight colour, and then maybe even have an even brighter final edge depending on that colour. So I hope that helps. And if you want to send pictures, do get yourself onto the GBHL Podcast Facebook page. More than happy to have a look and give you some help. So thanks for that, Luke. Next up we've got Bradley Cobden. He's put, what are your thoughts on an all-mounted Numenor army using Gondor profiles? So basically a mounted Gondor army, because that's what you'd have to do. If you mean sort of theoretically, if you were able to take Gondor cavalry with mounted Isildur and mounted Elendil, then you've got two great heroes there. But Minas Tirith cavalry will struggle with what most cavalry armies struggle with, which is, we love that idea that they can charge in, and they've got the lance, which is fantastic. They should be killing when they win the combats, but they're only fight 3, and when fight 4 is such a kind of key place to be in terms of matching or beating certain factions, you know, not including elves of course, then that is a bit of a weak point for Gondor cavalry. But it's also the fact that, you know, they are going to struggle if they lose that roll off. They can't really do any of the kind of skirmish game, of course, where they pull the opponent apart and then just pick on parts of the line or isolate bits of your enemy force. So that makes it a bit tough to run. But you know, if you were going to do it, I mean, your heroes would have to do a lot in that. Let's just say that. I think it looked cool, so thank you very much, Bradley Cobden. Ryan Ratchford was next, and he was congratulating us on making 4,500 subscribers. Woo! It's great news. Thank you everybody for supporting us. We really do appreciate it. Next up, we've got our good friend Jay Finnegan of Guild Ball Informer. You'll have seen him in quite a bit of content with our very own Mr. Giblin. He's put, we could ask Guild Ball questions. I'm in. Brilliant. Well, that's good, because there we go. Look at that. Guild Ball Pundit. I'd say I absolutely love the game, and this was a big surprise, and also how much I've ended up loving the game has been a big surprise. I mean, initially I was kind of thinking, well, I'm not really sure if that's going to be for me, you know, and then I played a casual game with Jay, and you know, I loved it, but even then I didn't think I'd get into it, because you can play it on so many different levels, which is why I love it. So if you haven't already tried Guild Ball, I do recommend going and checking it out. But if you do want to see some Guild Ball content, go and check out Guild Ball Informer, or you can go check out my channel and support me by going over to Hot Gates Gaming. And of course Jamie every now and again does things for his own sector of this channel, which is Guild Ball TV. So question 1, who's our super cool new Guild Ball pundit? Clearly moi. 2, what teams are you both playing this year? Well, I know Jamie's been enjoying doing the Brewers. I am, of course, using Alchemists. I finished Abattoir Away Days Series 1, which is my Guild Ball Match Report series featuring the Butchers, who are my favourite team. I've not really played with many others though. Season 2 is with the Alchemists, a very different type of team. But I have bought some Engineers as well, which have been painted up by your co-host Chris. Which is cool, and I'm looking forward to getting hold of the Hunters as well when they come out. So those are probably going to be the teams that I'm working with this year, and also more Butcher stuff as well when Season 2 Captain comes out. 3, who's running the world's biggest GB event ever in May? Well, I believe that would be yourself, Jamie Giblin, and Chris Hay. Congratulations to you guys. So they are running the first ever 128-man Guild Ball tournament, and that's happening, you know, only a year or so after the Kickstarter for Guild Ball. It's incredible. It's certainly bigger than any of the Hobbit tournaments that have been. Although Ardacon, hopefully, will be getting that kind of numbers and above. So huge congratulations to you guys. You're going to have such a busy weekend. Well done for selling out. It's going to be incredible. Number 4, if you could bring one new guild to the game, what would they be and what would their playstyle be? One new guild, well, I do, just from a completely egotistical point of view, I really did like the fact that Ben Redmond really put some thought into the idea of a Messengers Guild. I do like the idea of a Messengers Guild, maybe not with the letter symbol. I was thinking more of like a winged Hermes kind of symbol, and very much kind of having that aesthetic, where they would rely on sort of, they would be a very kind of dodge team. You know, there'd be lots of dodging, lots of pushes and dodges, and they'd be quite fast, nipping in and out. So I kind of like the idea of that, and the idea that would be a little bit of a homage to anybody on YouTube who or who runs podcasts or the like, or supports the game. So I do like that. But apart from that, you know, it's a bit cliche, but I guess things like thieves guilds and things along those lines, you know, could come into it. You know, a merchants guild which could sort of purchase influence and the like. That could be quite interesting. I don't know, something like they could spend influence to gain, like barter almost, to get influence back or momentum, and have a different kind of a controlling game. You know, bribing players to do things. I guess that would be kind of Mortician-esque, but it could work for a merchant skill. So yeah, maybe some of those. And you've got a Hobbit question here. You put, who is the fluffiest character in the game, look and profile? I've been wrecking my brain for ideas, preparing for me and Baldwin bringing the fluff at 7 stones. It's the fluffiest character. So something useless that you would only bring for fluff reasons. I'm looking around, I have nothing like that. Frodo with the 9 fingers. He's pretty terrible, isn't he? And fluffy. Yeah, let's go for that. Let's go for Frodo. Frodo with the 9 fingers. Have fun with that one. Thanks very much for the question, Jay. Good to have you back on Speak Friend in Question. Next up, we've got Akathon39. But comments has asked, I've been trying to post. Thought I have, but no. Oh well, the long dry spell has passed, and I'm back. So I'll just have to repost all my month's worth of questions on this video. Sorry, Jamie, in advance. Get Bilbo going, doing those tricks. My first question is, James, how in favour was Jane when you suggested your family pet to be called Bilbo? Well, I didn't actually suggest it as such. So the reason why Bilbo is called Bilbo is because, as you all know, he was a wedding present for my darling wife. She'd been going on for years probably about wanting a dog, and I had convinced her over that period of time that it just wasn't fair, that, you know, we're both self-employed, we wouldn't be able to take care of a dog. But I had a plan. I knew that Bilbo was going to be her wedding present. But Jane's always had an obsession with calling a dog after a biscuit for some reason, like biscuits or Oreo or something like that. I knew that we would want to get a little dog, and Jane was actually kind of keen on my mum's dog, called Tuppence, who's also a little black Yorkie poo. So when I was looking around, my mum actually helped me looking for a litter that we thought was good, and yeah, my mum looked after Bilbo before the wedding, and was actually the one who presented it to Jane on the wedding morning. But my mum said, look, we've got to call him something in the meantime, you know. And I said, well, ultimately he's going to be down to Jane to name, but for the meantime, I like the name Bilbo. And there's a great video, it's on my Facebook, so if you're a Facebook friend you might be able to see that. But when Jane gets presented Bilbo, meets him for the first time, and she does say, what's his name? And my mum says, well, it's down to you to name him, but James has had us calling him Bilbo in the meantime, and the rest is history. She was well up for it. She thinks he is a Bilbo. He definitely is a Bilbo. It matches him. So thank you very much for that, Akathon, and you're back as Ryan Ratchford, and you put, do you think GW will ever re-release the source books now it's being continued, or won't they, due to them only probably be making a new independent board game system? Well, we don't know yet, it's all speculation. I don't think that we'll see the source books back in print. If anything, it would be a PDF resource, and that would, and really they would be doing that to keep fans happy. I think that would be a nice nod of them to everybody who's been supporting the game, that look, you know, we understand that some of you still want to continue or are getting into this game. We have no intention to print run these things, but here they are. But I'm not sure whether they can do that depending on the licenses that they've got with New Line and the like. So they might not be able to release that in a digital format. You don't know what the agreement is for Lord of the Rings. And whether it's going to be like an independent board game, so that, again, that's speculation. I think that that's what it's probably going to be like, doing standalone games set in Middle-earth, but we don't know. You put also, will we ever get a new source book for all new things, or just inbox profiles like Dale Warriors? I have absolutely no idea, pal. It'll be very interesting to see if it is a form of SBG that we see in the future, or miniatures that can be used for SBG. But that remains to be seen. So we've got a lot to look forward to. And we've got another one here from you, Akathon39. You put lots of questions, but very long time to make up for, and also more comments to credit you guys. You guys get a win-win. I booked everything and I'm ready for Desolation of Stockport. Good man. What do you think of this? Now, final army list. 400 points. Gimli, leader. 8 Dwarf Warriors with bow. 4 Dwarf Warriors with shield. King's Champion, 2 Heralds. 10 Dwarf Warriors with shield. 26 in total. 14 to break. 20 to kill. 25%. I didn't think it would be difficult to break. You've got your banners in there for your dwarves, which you need because you're quite small numbers. And you've got good heroes. And your troops will be tough to crack. So, yeah. You know, try and use your high defense to shut down some of those heroes from being able to chop through your force, while your heroes do the same. That'd be quite good. But how do you think it will do with the scenarios and the meta at 400 points? Also, I'm looking for a place to stay at TOS. Where are you guys booking? Well, I live in Stockport, so I won't be booking anywhere. And Jamie, I'm guessing, will have a few people staying at his house, who will then drive him in the morning. That tends to be the case. But most people will be staying at the Britannia in Stockport, or at the Premier Inn just across the road from the Northwest Gaming Centre. So I hope that helps. In terms of how it will fit with the scenarios and the meta, you know, you've just got to see. As we always say with SBG, it sounds like a cop-out answer, but anybody, you know, any force can beat any force if the player does the right things at the right time, and you've got to have that luck as well. So the best of luck with it, and I look forward to catching up with you there. Next up, we've got Mikey's Miscasts. I've been thinking of getting some Lord of the Rings models, so this was great fun to watch. Keep up the awesome work, guys. Well, I thought that you were a new name, and since you are a new name, you've got to get involved, pal. You know, make sure you ask a question next week, and check out all of the content that we've got, because we've got tons of battle reports and like. It'd be great to get a new person into the game again. 19 Mark F91 has commented about Jamie's face at a certain point in the video. I think I went and checked this earlier in the week, but I cannot remember what he was screwing up his face to me saying. It was something. Next up, we've got Lucas Whitcroft White. He's put, hi guys, my question this week is, what do you think is the best grenade profile in the game, e.g. Boromir? Thanks a lot, and hope to see you guys at coming tournaments, Lucas. Well, thank you very much, Lucas, and look forward to seeing you soon too. Well, Boromir of Gondor is a fantastic grenade profile. You just chuck him in and he's probably going to die, and you want him to kill as much as possible. But I did have the fun, I suppose, of using the new Thranduil profile, and he's very much, he's similar in a lot of ways. Obviously he's a lot better. He's a lot better than Boromir of Gondor, but it was incredibly satisfying just seeing little Thranduil shaped holes in my opponent as the game went on. But the issue with him is, of course, you know, especially up against any kind of strength 4, the moment that he loses one of those trapped surrounded fights and you don't have the might to do anything about it, he will probably go down. But yeah, he's up there for favourite grenade profile, definitely. So thanks very much, Lucas. Next up we've got Akon39 again. You put, okay, so you're the new head of Games Workshop, guys, and choose what to realise to release first. New, reimagined, or whatever. But what would they be? Points, profiles, thingies, and stuff. Well, I think a lot of people have been keen to get some of the things from Battle of Five Armies, you know, to flesh out some of the new armies. So, you know, I know that some converters and sculptists have filled the gap, but you'd imagine to see things like Dane and Iron Hills warriors. You'd expect to see some of the weird sort of cool stuff, the weird evil artillery. I believe that there's some extended good artillery thing. The dwarves have got a weird arrow chopping thing in the extended version. So maybe some of those kind of things. You know, some Gundabad orc, sort of the pale orc, bigger guys that aren't just Gundabad orc, aren't just the Gundabad orcs in that sense. Maybe some of those kind of guys. Some of the kind of half trolly kind of people. Maybe. But of course, in terms of new, reimagined, or whatever, you know, there are lots of profiles that I guess that we would like sort of bringing up to date. So yeah. So thank you very much. And you got another one, which is your final question. You talk about a hierarchy of heroes for Rohan. What order of highest to smallest would you have the Durin's folk? Separately, what would this be for Army of Thrall? And finally, after you've got those two lists, if they were combined, then what would the hierarchy be for all of them in one list? E.g. Thorin's Company, King's Champion, Balin, Son of Fundin, Dwalin. Hierarchy of heroes. So remember, this isn't just what is the most powerful. This is sort of points effective. So for a dwarven list, people usually are in a thing where they have to choose between Balin, Gimli, or Dane. They usually choose two of one of those. But the King's Champion, in terms of what he brings for his points and the fact that you're effectively getting those banners in there for free as well, he does a great job, and we all know that. He does an absolutely superb job. So maybe King's Champion, maybe Balin, then Dane and Gimli maybe, and then you've got like your Floys and your others in that maybe after that. That Durin, of course, is absolutely phenomenal, but Durin is phenomenal, but it's at what points cost, you know, can you bring him? And then of course you've got Murin and Dra. We don't really see them much. They're quite a good way of getting extra might in there, but they're just, I don't think they're quite as good. I think Thorin's Company, you've obviously got, if you mean for Army of Thrall, I think it's got to be Thorin, then Dwalin, and then Thrain, and then maybe Balin and Thrall after that. You were talking about people that can lead troops. Yeah, I would probably go along that line. The reason why I'd put Dwalin second is because although Thrain is incredibly good, I think that Thorin for his points is better, and of course can be mounted. And then if you're bringing him, you want to bring Dwalin. He's cheaper, but he, you know, can really hit stuff and take stuff out hard. So that's probably what I would think. And in terms of hierarchy of them all, I think generally a lot of the new heroes are pretty good. Maybe you'd fit Balin in there. But yeah, tough question. It takes up a lot of time, so I better crack on. Otherwise I'm never going to get my tea. So next up we've got Joseph Harley. He's put, "Hi guys, my question for this week is, if you had to take an Azog Hunters list with either Azog, Lieutenant of Sauron, or Bolg, Castellan of Mount Gundabad, who would it be? Keep up the great content." Well, as much as I like the Azog profile, I think it's really cool and fun. I would take Bolg all day long. I think Bolg, he's defense 7, he's got all the 3s in the right places, he's attack 7, because he's mounted on, you know, in that profile he can be mounted. It's not unlikely that he can start getting through troops and triggering off, whereas, you know, Azog is still pretty reasonably vulnerable. If he charges and wins a combat against a hero, he will delete that hero. but I think Bolg is probably the better choice. I would think. And you got another question here. Second comment, woohoo! Doing my bit to help with the likes comments after a few weeks off. Well, thank you very much. I like the formations idea, but I wouldn't like restrictions on list building. Yeah, I'd be exactly the same. I mean, I wouldn't want formations to restrict it. I just would want it to... It wouldn't be that you could only take things in that format, but that you were rewarded. So you got little buffs that were White Council-esque for bringing particular formations. So if you brought Theoden with 12 Riders of Rohan or something, or maybe it was, I don't know, 8 Riders of Rohan and 4 Royal Guard mounted. And if you took that, then everything, you know, Theoden counts as a banner for that formation, or so, something like that. I think formations, ways of encouraging sort of fluffy builds could be quite cool, but not in a restrictive way, just in a bonus way. I think the fluffy benefits should be what it's used to make people take them. Yeah, exactly. This could also be used to address certain imbalances that exist due to older profiles. For example, don't stop people taking Shades and Reavers, but something like this, like a this for you, James, death rule for Theoden, and a bunch of Riders of Rohan, such as making Theoden a 3-3 will 3 fate hero, banner rule, etc. Things was increase options for everyone, as nothing is off limits, while giving fluff players a fighting chance. Yeah, I think it's a good idea. I mean, yeah, anything that rewards people bringing kind of cinematic choices rather than, you know, things that clearly aren't supposed to working together. I think that's the thing. So if you reward people for that, then that's great. So thank you very much, Joseph Harley. Next up we got Christian Adams. Hi GBHL, back in the game after a long hiatus with 2 battles under my belt. Welcome back, Christian. I'm finally getting around to joining the loop. We'll make sure you ask questions week on week, my friend. Thanks so much for the inspiring content. Here is my question. While I understand that ring raids are widely considered a competitive choice, what specific tactics should I be using to counter them in-game? My regular opponent is fond of the Witch King on Felbeast and usually has a couple of basic raids packing him up behind his lines. I've been able to counter this trio of spellcasters effectively, and it can be frustrating at times, feeling like all of my heroes are useless. I play a mix of High Elves and Grey Company if it helps. Cheers. What is he bringing that with? Yeah, I mean, playing against and at what points level are you playing? Playing against multiple spellcasters is tough, but it does look like if he's got 3 raids in there, I'm not sure what kind of troops that he's bringing along. Do consider the scenario. That's always pretty important. You could always do your whole anti-Wraith thing and bring new Saruman on foot, White Council with a new Galadriel. But you don't necessarily need to do that. 3 spellcasters are going to be tough to deal with, so it means that, you know, taking big heroes, which High Elves can sometimes rely on, isn't necessarily going to be your best option. It's not necessarily going to be your best option, because they are going to probably get shut down. Having some kind of caster though, which if you can afford to, you know, at least it means that they've got to tackle them. So if you've got like a Gandalf or a Saruman with you, 3 casters will get that one down, but that's 3 to 6 sort of spell casting goes where your troops and your other heroes can get in there and do what they need to do against the majority's force. You know, and getting into combat with basic raids as well, you know, if you can try and get in on them, you know, whittle them down, that should work. So I can imagine, yeah, all of your heroes will feel like they're useless, but you really do need to try and get up in his face and maybe not be as reliant on your big heroes, to be honest. And it looks like you've got a pretty shooty army as well. Just shoot the troops, make them come to you. So I hope that helps, Christian. Welcome back to the game. Next up we've got Martin Smith. He's put, hello again guys, I hope you had a good week. My question for this week comes from the game I had on Friday. Cool stuff. We played Reconnoiter. I used my Isengard force and my opponent was Elves. The game ended 4-2 to the Uruks, but it all came down to the final combat. Lurtz versus Legolas. Both were the army's generals. Going into that combat the score was 3-2, so it could have swung either way. My question is, what was your best game that you were involved in that went right to the wire? Well, I've been in quite a few games that went to the wire, but I think I've mentioned it quite a few times. Very early on in my learning of SBG, probably the most wire that things have gone down to was a a game versus James Bond, who was smashing my Rivendell. I think, did I have Rivendell? I had a 50-50 Rivendell Knight and Sons of Ale list, and he had Saruman, and I think he had an all-hero list, and he was schooling me. But I kind of somehow clawed it back, but was still not really in it. And then there was a huge swing, and it depended on I needed to roll like a 6 at the end of the game or something like that, and then I'd won, and it came off. And I think that's probably the closest the game's gone down. It's one that sticks in my mind anyway. There's probably been a few, but that's the one that sticks in my mind. So thank you very much, Martin Smith. Next up we've got God of Gods. He's put, why has GBHL James been a little more absent from the GBHL podcast? He said he would still be active on the GBHL podcast, but has only been doing battle reports for Hotgates Gaming. Well, the main reason for that, there's a couple of reasons. Obviously, one of the reasons that I went to go and do Hotgates Gaming was that before I did, I was producing a lot of the content for the GBHL podcast. So I tended to be the one, not all the time, this isn't taking away credit from anybody, but I tend to be the one producing the battle report per week on the Saturday, definitely getting a hobby vlog up. I tend to film and edit Speak Friend in Question, and then if Jamie and I had done like a series in between, a lot of those I would film and edit as well. But of course, you know, the guys, the SBG guys, they've got their magazine. Jamie obviously has took up the Patreon for the GBHL podcast to support him as he left Lego, which of course we all support massively. But it is important for me in a lot of ways that I could go and do something which I felt that there was going to be some kind of direct reward back for my time. Now, I did have absolutely every intention, and still would do as well, to be perfectly honest, of continuing to film battle reports for the GBHL podcast. But I have still been on. You'll have still seen me doing my hobby vlogs for this. I've still been doing Speak Friend in Question, and I have been involved, of course, in weekly content where I've just filmed and I've done battle reports for both since. The reason why that's not really kept up is because Jamie's been filming them for the channel, and that can only be a good thing. So you might think, well, why aren't we getting two? Well, ultimately, there's only so much time that we've got. So if you do want to go and see any Hobbit strategy battle gaming battle reports from myself, for the most part they are going to be on Hotgates Gaming, because GBHL Jamie, since he gets the Patreon from this, has very much taken up the mantle for the GBHL, and he's stepping up to the plate, and he is producing battle report content for you guys. So you're not getting less, it's just that you're getting them in slightly different places. And you still see me around. It's just that I think before I was doing so much for the channel, and now, let's look at it. If we're a team of 4, then it should be equal. So that's the way that it's gone. But I'm glad that you miss me. But I am just a click away. So thank you very much, God of Gods. Next up we've got Saruman the White. He's put Happy Valentine's Day. Thank you very much. Since this is the month of love, here is a quiz on, you guessed it, Valentine's Day. So question 1, which country started the tradition? Ooh, I've got no idea. Italy? I've got absolutely no idea. What does the word Valentine stand for? Doesn't it? Valentine, a saint? He's a dude, isn't he? Isn't he a saint who's martyred? But I don't know what the etymology of the name is at all. Question 3. Cupid was the son of which Roman god? Use Greek if you are more familiar. Was Cupid the son of which Roman god? Oh, god. Which god? Well, I always thought that he was the son of Aphrodite, which would be Venus, so that would be what's his name? Hephaestus in Greek? I can't remember. Is that him? I don't know. And question 4. Out of girlfriends, wives, teachers, pets or mothers, who receives the most Valentine's cards? Is that a trick question? I've got no idea. Out of girlfriends, wives, teachers, pets or mothers, who receives the most Valentine's cards? Well, you're only supposed to give them to your partners, but I know that there are weird traditions out there where people give them to their mothers and things. It's more of a kind of celebrated holiday in that way, like rather than it being a couple thing. So I've got absolutely no idea. Now for my actual question, is Canned a viable list for a general battle, including some of the old models such as Mighty King of Canned? Is it a viable list? It's not. It's not a particularly competitive list, but yeah, of course it's a viable list. All of the lists are viable. Everybody's got a chance in SBG, and just like anything, some are at different points on that power curve, but it comes very much down to scenario play. So if you want to do it, definitely do it. It's a nice looking army. And you put, who was that scum impersonating me? I will rip his skull from his flesh and leave the pitted skin hanging from his shoulders. The one, the only, Lizard Boy. Which is for that, buddy. Yeah, that was cool. And thank you very much for the quiz again this week, and for all your support on Twitter. You're really smashing the Twitter. So next up we have got Crodicam. So this is turned into a long one, and this isn't just down to me, by the way. This is because there are so many questions. 65 questions. Thank you for a great episode as always. The Bosch dices look great, and like you said, makes rolling those ones much more fun. I'm great at rolling ones, so I really need some. Well, make sure you get to Destination Stockport if you can, buddy. Now my question for this week is, if I want to make a piercing strike with Gimli, can I use his 2 axes for 3 attacks, or am I stuck with the double-handed axe with 2 attacks? Well, I think you can piercing strike with his 2 little axes, no problem at all. Yeah, you can piercing strike and do 3 attacks. And you've also put, I really want to see Bilbo doing tricks. Well, it looks like that video will have to come along. I had one more question about the Fellowship. Can I have different warbands in a Fellowship list? For example, Aragorn leads Legolas and Gimli in the first warband, and Boromir leads Pippin and Merry in the second warband. Best regards, Mikael Janssen. That's a really interesting one. I don't actually have my Free Peoples on me. It's up in the van. I mean, I presume it says it in the Free Peoples whether you can have one warband of Fellowship or not. I would imagine that from a gaming point of view, I'm leaning towards the fact that you could. But I think if you take those models, they're part of the Fellowship. I'm not too sure. I actually have no idea. I actually have no idea. And I'm not going to check that either, because we need to get through this. So once again, that one, definitely get onto the Great British Hobbit League Facebook page. I'm sorry I can't help you with that, mate. Next up we've got Mikael Bojhan. He's put, great episode as always. Glad you're enjoying them, mate. This week's questions are concerning my favourite model in the game, which is Tom Bombadil. I've used him many times. He's tons of fun to play with, although not competitive at all. However, there are some rules queries with him. Tom is a master rule, states that he treats any kind of terrain as open. Does that just mean that he can pass through a mountain, for example, as for him it's just open ground? And can Alfred give might to him? I see no reason why not, but there are some players that are sceptical about this. Thanks, and keep up the great work. So Tom Bombadil is your favourite model in the game. He's quite an infuriating profile to play against. He seems to be for scenario play. You say he's not competitive at all. I think he can be very competitive. The issue is the gaming scenarios. You know, you've got to take a certain kind of list, and the heroes that you take him with have got to be able to really dish out the damage and do an awful lot, but he'll keep them all safe, and of course no one can kill him. So that he treats any kind of terrain as open. I think that's mainly for like woodland terrain and the like. You know, I think if you've got a big impassable kind of mountain thing, I don't think you can just sort of walk him up or whatever. Use common sense. That's usually a good way to go for SBG from memory. And can Alfred give might to him? Well, if there's nothing in the rules that says that he can't, then I don't see why not. So that might not be hugely helpful, but it might be a little bit. So next up we've got Son of Gloin. Woohoo! And he is visiting me tomorrow, James Scullion, so I've actually got to get up early and tidy this place up. so that you can film, so that we can film. But that's going to be really good fun. And if we get time, we'll do one for the GBHL podcast, and we'll do one for Thingy as well. But like I say, if Jamie's making battle reports for the GBHL podcast, then you're still getting your one report per week that we've always committed to. And if Jamie wants to do that, then that's great, isn't it? That's really good. But this one, the priority one, will probably be over on Hot Gates Gaming. So you put, I'm here 2 weeks in a row. Things must be good. I'm gutted neither of you have played the Champs of Erebor enough to comment on them. But by the time this vid goes out, James may have played my Champs of Erebor. It'll be my first time using them too. Well, hopefully we don't get too many rules wrong. You put, also, the beard is definitely a lad goal. So the big question is, does the wife like it? No, she absolutely hates it. Jane hates the beard. She hates it. She loathes it with a passion. Every time that we wake up in the morning, she grumps at me and says, when are you going to shave it off? But I've said to her that I just need to do it once. I need to get through this. I'm actually getting quite a lot of positive comments as well. It seems to have grown pretty neat considering it's not been trimmed yet. So yeah. You put, I had to get rid of my beard due to the missus not liking it. Haha. Well, I've had to do that many a time, but I've decided to persevere through this one. As for a question this week, apart from Rohan and Wood Elves, what are your favourite factions and heroes? Thanks again, fellas. My favourite factions, well, I really like the theme of the Grey Company, but I never use them just because I painted them so long ago, and I don't really like the play style of them. I have an Isengard army. I don't particularly enjoy using that as much, I have to say. I do like using all hero. I like using the Fellowship and the like. That's always quite cool, and using wizards. And the Rivendell Knights can be fun to play with, but it can be a little bit routine-esque. So yeah, I mean, but nothing compares to Rohan for me in terms of the enjoyment. Maybe all hero. I've really enjoyed using Beorn. You know, that guy there. I absolutely loved painting him, and I've enjoyed using him. So I think I'm probably going to use him a bit more in the future. I really enjoyed using Sauron, and a couple of ring wraiths at the league final. That didn't work very well, but I enjoyed using that. So yeah, those are probably some of the ones that I enjoy playing with. So I look forward to meeting you face to face in person tomorrow. So next up we've got David Reed, our friend in Sterling Wargamers. You put, Jamie, you say that you paint to an army list. Do you ever end up with odd models left around because of that? I used to do it, but I found I ended up with things like 22 Abrakan Guard painted and 2 left over, or my single unpainted plastic Wood Elf because I only painted what I needed for a certain list. More recently, I've just been painting all of the troop types if it's going to be 3 or less models left over. It saves me having to go back when I want to include an extra one of those troops in my list. And are either of you going to the tournament in Sanctuary? If so, I'll see you there. Well, unfortunately, I won't be able to go. It's going to be very hard for me to get to many this year, mainly because most of my passes are already been taken. Of course, there's Throne of Skulls, which is a big one, and we've got our own Desolation of Stockport in that same kind of time. If I go to Nova later this year, that's going to be a big part of my pass, and running Ardacon is also going to overtake my life for quite a bit. So it's going to be tough. I'm going to try and support some of these events, but it's really good to see that they've been gathering some steam, and don't need me anymore. But it'd be lovely to catch up with you guys. Yeah, I never just paint. I mean, have I done that before? No, I tend to do what you do now, matey. I don't leave bits left over to have to go back to. That would be annoying. Next up, we got William McAllister. You put, hey guys, back in 2004 I attended a Lord of the Rings open day at Warhammer World. There was painting, modelling workshops, bring and buy a table, scenarios to take part in, including Monster Assault and Ministerial Board, seminars on Lord of the Rings hobby related goodness, etc. I wasn't really old enough to appreciate what an awesome event it was. Do you think this type of day weekend would be a success in the community now? A change to a tournament and possibly a good way to get new people into the scene. Cheers. Well, you've just described what Ardacon is going to be aiming to be. That is what Ardacon is going to be aiming to be. It's not just a tournament. Yes, we're running a doubles event. Yes, there is a World Team Championships, which also is a 100-point league tournament for the Great British Hobbit League. And yes, there will be a fun Chaos in Arda tournament. Oh, leak. Wow, gosh, some of you guys have got that ahead of schedule. But yeah, there'll be other things going on there, such as painting seminars, hobby things, demonstrations of games, they'll be bringing buys, there'll be shops and stores and lots of other things going on. So if you want to come and get involved in that, Ardacon, it's the 21st to the 23rd of October in Manchester City Centre. So thanks for that, William McAllister. Next up we've got J22, my doubles partners. But hello James and Jamie. Firstly, loving the Bosch dice. Never a fan of having symbol on the one, but if any dice are allowed to have them, then these are them. Question for Jamie this week. No point in doing that because he's not here. But you're talking about Batman miniatures and whether he started playing the game. I know that I don't think he has played the game yet. I don't think he's played the game yet. Yeah, we found it quite confusing. We'd like to get into it at some point. I've got Batman, for example. I'd love to try it, but neither of us have got to that point. But definitely one for the future, my friend. Next up, we got Larry Joe NL. He's put, hey guys, new to commenting on these. Well, welcome to the loop, my friend. He's put, watching your videos helped me a lot with the rules for Hobbit game. They must have been the ones with Jamie in them. I used to collect those Diagostini, I always have trouble saying that, Battle Games in Middle-earth magazines. So I have a huge number of the old models. Terrible paint jobs as I was 11 at the time. I've been watching this series while painting up a new Minas Tirith army. Oh, fantastic to hear. I tried converted some mounted Citadel guards by replacing a lance holding arms on knights with spear holding arms from basic Minas Tirith warriors. I also replaced some spears with bows. Now, for my question, would you prefer mounted Citadel guards or knights of Minas Tirith? Well, a mounted Citadel guard isn't too bad actually. You've got a mounted bowman that's got a strength 3 bow. They a defense 5, which you could say is one of the letdowns, but really is cavalry that's not good. Then they fight 4, and they are 16 points. Are they 16 points with a bow? I mean, I would definitely recommend taking them with bows and doing that if you're going to do it. Yeah, I would probably go for that way. Knights of Minas Tirith aren't fantastic. They're not fantastic, but maybe having a smattering of them in there for the lances, it's pretty good, you know, for that initial charge. That could be quite good. So thank you very much for that, Larry Joe NL, and let us know how you're getting on with that army as well, buddy. So next up we've got the Commander Kaiser. He's put, for me, the two best models that represent the scene from the film are the Uruk-hai carrying Merry and Pippin. Such brilliant models. Yeah, fantastic. I think all of that Amon Hen stuff is brilliant. I also think that Arwen and Frodo on horse is a good shout. Yeah, that's pretty good as well. This week's question is a rules one. Played a game yesterday and something cropped up. I hope it's not complicated because I won't be able to answer it. My herald for the King's Champion lost his fight and backed off 1 inch into base contact with the King's Champion. Then the fight with the King's Champion was next. Does he benefit from the improved defence now or not? I'm guessing yes, since it makes sense, as you need to carefully pick the order of the fights, but I thought I'd check. Thanks in advance for answering. Yeah, I don't see why not. If you can back away 1 inch into base contact, then I think he would get the benefit. I don't see why not. I think that that's the correct answer. But again, rules questions are always a really good idea. Like, to get really good answers, it's a good idea to go onto the Great British Hobby League Facebook page and post there. But I think, you know, if someone did that to me, I mean, I've not been playing a huge amount of Hobbit lately. It's amazing how you kind of fall out of practice of the mind, and of course I've not been going to tournaments, so you know, you do get rusty in your mind pretty quickly about certain nuances in the game. But I don't think that there's any problem with that. So thank you very much for the question. So next up we've got Jorge Arnold, or George Arnold, I'm not sure how you pronounce your name, buddy, so let me know. Hi guys, I scrapped the Númenórean army idea. Discovering spearmen and archers were either hard to get or too expensive, so I moved on to an Ithilien themed army. Lots of Ithilien guard and rangers with heroes such as Faramir, Damrod, Madril, Baragon, possibly Kirion. Also I was thinking of taking warriors of Minas Tirith and green something close, possibly hoods to represent the Ithilien guard, seeing as no model labelled as Ithilien guard. Ah, too many brackets. My question is, do you think this list could work? As always, loving the videos, and I would love to hear your feedback on an idea like this, and I have avoided giving you a list because we all know that you love them. Also, are conversions legal in GBHL tourneys? Just asking for future reference. Cheers in advance, George or Jorge. I'm not sure how you say your name. Okay, so conversions are legal, but it's always best to check with the TO. So what we always recommend that you do is take a picture and send it to the relevant tournament organizer. Most tournament organizers are cool if you put a certain amount of effort into making something look like something. But in this case, I mean, a warrior of Minas Tirith would be acceptable, but the fact that you're sculpting cloaks onto them makes it even more acceptable. In terms of whether it will work as an army, you know, you don't see these armies on the top tables normally. I think it works. It's a great fluffy army, and just like anything, it's going to depend very much against the scenario and what you are up against and who you're up against as well. But if that's a theme that you really like, go for it, because it's got a really cool theme. So don't be deterred by whether it's going to be competitive or not. It's not uncompetitive. You've got lots of cheap heroes there where you can get more troops as a result, and Faramir is not a bad mid-level hero either. So I hope that helps. So next up we've got Guillermo. He's put, "Hi guys, I have a question or a request. Could you give me some pros and cons of Legions of Middle-earth? I want to compare it with the warband rules from the last 5 books. I think players had more freedom with Legions than warbands. Thanks for the channel, guys. It's my favourite podcast when I'm driving to work." Well, that's great news. It's good to hear that some of you listen to this when you're going to work. That's certainly how I would do it. I'd listen rather than watch. Not really the most visual of shows. Okay, so I wasn't around when Legions of Middle-earth was around, but what I hear is that there were a lot of situations where you could get like, there were a lot of lists which weren't fun to play. So you could get Legolas leading like 90 wood elves, you know, and apparently that's a list that kind of existed. And so I think what warband rules allow you to do, or force you to do, is bring more heroes. And when it's a skirmish, because remember this is a skirmish game, and I think Legions, it seems from the outside looking in, it seems like Legions kind of could take away from that, because it could become more about unnamed captains or just loads and loads and loads of troops and really trying to sort of spam the troops. Whereas when you're forced to bring the heroes, that very much does change the dynamic, and it does make it more of a kind of, makes it more of a skirmish game in that kind of sense. I know that there are some people that prefer Legions, or certainly elements of it. But I think there's a general consensus as well that warbands has worked out quite well for the game in terms of, you know, what that in turn brings. It's not perfect, but it's not the worst form of army building to force people to have to really consider what heroes to bring. And you've got another one here, which is, I will separate my questions because I want to see Bilbo making a trick. I think that video has got to happen now. Okay, checking the Hobbit SBG errata, I've found this. Cavalry knocked prone. If the riders of any cavalry knocked prone are automatically thrown, counting as having rolled a knocked flying result. Does that mean that the cavalry riders suffer a strength 3 hit? Yes, it should. Yes, it should. They do. They automatically suffer a strength 3 hit. I forgot to add that if the rider suffers a strength 3 hit, Nature's Wrath spell against cavalry should be a nightmare with this errata. Well, what's even worse is when like a monstrous cavalry, like a fell beast, charges in, and you are automatically knocked flying. And yeah, and you take that strength 3. Yeah, it's pretty grim. It's pretty grim, to be honest, as a cavalry player. So thank you very much, Guillermo. Next I've got Robert Camp, another patron. So hello. But hi guys, thanks for the lineups last week. This week my first topic is X-Wing. So very relevant. So one of the reasons Jamie and I couldn't see each other on Saturday was that Jamie was in Sheffield. Was he in Sheffield playing X-Wing, I think. I think it was Sheffield. This week my first topic is X-Wing. I recently bought the starter box and played my first game yesterday. It's so much fun. Are you guys going to be giving us any more X-Wing content in the future? Well, I believe that Jamie has bought a star map, like a space map, and he really loves the game, so I'm sure that he's going to be doing it, and I'm certainly going to be doing it on Hotgates Gaming as a, again, do a pilot series. Pilot series, see what I did there? Pun. The Palantir will be so jealous. yeah, I'm going to do a pilot series for that, and just see if there's support from the X-Wing community, and if there is, then we'll roll with it, and if there's not, then we won't. But we will see with that. But yeah, I'm sure that there will be. Second topic: how competitive would you say Goblin Town Thorin's company is, and just how much better are they with the Grey Wizard there as well? Once again, thanks for the great content, Rob. Well, I don't think they're hugely competitive. You know, they don't have, or they work quite. They've got some nice little synergies with each other. You know, one or two of them are particularly good, but a lot of them are effectively sort of named captains in a lot of ways. So don't necessarily have the ingredients that you need for an all-hero list. I don't think, again, you don't necessarily see Thorin's company, pure Thorin's company, sort of on those top tables at competitive events, but they're not a terrible list by all means. Definitely not. And I think anybody with the Wizard included, Gandalf, is going to be much better, because Wizards bring so much to the game if you know how to use them. So thank you once again for a comment, Rob, and we'll see you soon. Next I've got Harry Moore. Thank you very much for featuring in Middle-earth's Deadliest Warbands from me, my friend. And let me just check how long have we got. I've only got 4 minutes of battery left, and aha, only 2 questions left, so this is perfect. So Harry Moore, thanks very much for being in my raid on Hobbiton battle report over on Hotcakes Gaming. Really appreciate you meeting me for that, and also for doing Middle-earth's Deadliest Warband with Jamie. I think Harry comes across really well on the camera, so I hope you've all been enjoying seeing him. But hey guys, great episode last week. My question this week is a rules query. When a warrior wins a fight against a trap model, if he is special striking such as stun, Hobbit Sheriff, does he get to roll stun dice twice or just once? Thanks guys, and keep up the great content. I think you get two, unless it specifically says roll 1 dice in the thing. So if it says roll 1 dice, but I don't have my rulebook to hand, so it very much depends on the wording. You know, you do get, when a model is trapped and you strike, you get double strikes. So unless it says roll 1 dice and compare or anything like that, I mean, I get confused sometimes between stun and bash and the like, but I think with those ones, I'm not sure. I don't think you get 2 chances to do it. I can't think off the top of my head. I'll have to see the rule book. So a good question, which unfortunately I can't answer. This is like the original Speak for Random questions when I was on my own. That's how rusty I am. But thanks for getting involved in Speak for Random question, Harry. And that brings us on to the second to last question, since we've only got a couple of minutes, which is God of Gods. You put, is Durin's folk still a competitive army? Kind of a dumb question, because I've pretty much built my Durin's folk army, but I just want to see what you guys think. Well, Durin's folk are a very forgiving army. They're quite hard to take down. They're a very fleshed out army list. You've got lots of options and choices, because they've got pretty good heroes. But the general consensus is that, you know, or has been in the past, we're going to have to wrap up very soon. The general consensus has been in the past that it's very hard for them to get them to do what they need to do in scenario play in tournaments. So yeah, I mean, they can be there or thereabouts. We have seen it happen once, where Calamedon's won with dwarves, but that has been the exception rather than the norm. But you'll have fun with them, and they're very forgiving, and they will win you games. So that brings on to the last question, which is absolutely huge. It's Dave Egan, and he missed the deadline. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy and paste that. I'm going to put that in the next one, because the camera is literally about to go, and this has been a very long video. Not my fault at all, but hopefully you guys got lots of painting done. So don't forget to comment, like, share and subscribe. Well done for all of the comments and likes. You're almost certainly going to see some Bilbo tricks in a video. But I tell you what, if we can match this next week, I'll do all of the tricks that he knows in a video. How does that sound? I'm sure we'll get back to you with competition winners as well. So don't forget to support your Hobbit hosts by checking the links in the video description below. Of course, you can support Tom and Damien with SBG magazine. You can support GBHL Jamie with his Patreon, or you can go and support my channel Hotcakes Gaming for more battle and match reports. Check out our Facebook page and Twitter as well. Support your Hobbit guys. Sorry that I was on my own this week, but I do hope that you got tons done to it, and look forward to seeing you next week. Happy strategy battle gaming.